Hello everybody, this is Shoveler12. I'm bringing you a brand new Minecraft video as part of a new series that I'm going to be launching. What this is, just for a little bit of context, is this is going to be a modded Minecraft series. Specifically, we're going to be working with the mod pack Funcraft. So for those of you that don't know, Funcraft is a mod pack that was put together by Mr. Iskal along with some of his friends. It contains something like 180 mods. Some of them are a little more common mods. Some of them are uh, a little less common mods. Some of them add a lot to the game. Some not as much. But I watched his series on it. I thought it was an absolute kick in the pants. I downloaded it. I've been enjoying it for quite some time. But what I did notice is that for some of the mod content, there's not nearly as much tutorial content. There's not as many Let's Plays out there. And so I thought it'd be really fun to do like semi-Let's Play, semi-tutorial series. So hopefully that's what this is going to be. And I've done a little bit of work in this world, so hopefully I'll be able to show you some different techniques, some of the things that I've learned, and we'll get right into it. What I will try to do is I will try to go through sort of the major mods that I'm using in each of the episodes so that you guys can know kind of what I'm referencing. But what I had planned for today is right here you can see kind of the framework of a sort of super smelter array. And right here we're just using a bunch of item ducts. So that's out of the mod Thermal Dynamics, very useful item. Basically, for those of you that don't know, they function similar to hoppers, but they can go up and down, left and right, without having to get funky with the directions of them. So that's very useful. And we're going to be hooking this up to a lava bucket generator. So we have lava buckets in there, and that's what we will be using for our fuel for this guy. And the really nice thing about that is that that's essentially going to make this an infinite smelter. We're going to create infinite fuel for this because it is actually possible to create infinite lava in this mod pack, which I think is pretty neat. So I've laid this out. As you can see, I've been running it, kind of testing things out. And then over here, I've sort of prepped an area to actually get everything, the lava generated. So without further ado, I think we can go ahead and get started, and I will just kind of try to explain things as I go, and then if there's questions, feel free to leave a comment, and if you do like this and you want to see more, feel free to drop a like. I would much appreciate that. Alrighty, so where we're going to get started is we're actually going to get started with, of all things, with some cobblestone. So let me just put in a temporary block there to hold our lava back. And then we're going to do that. This is a very simple, just vanilla, not even redstone, little cobblestone generator. Now what we are going to do is we're going to take one of these auto breakers from Actually Additions. And one quick comment about a lot of the things in Actually Additions, if you guys don't know, see how it says redstone mode deactivation right there? Essentially what that means is that's what's going to happen when you apply redstone to it. So if I apply a redstone signal to it, if I reach in here and grab a torch, so right now, this thing wouldn't do anything. So if I put a block in front of it, nothing would happen. As soon as I remove the redstone, it's going to break that block and pull it into its inventory. If you right-click it with a torch, that will change the mode to pulse. So now it is waiting for a redstone signal to pulse it, and then it will only do whatever that action is one time. So now it's been activated one time. It won't pull again until I remove the signal, put it back. But for now, we're going to leave it in deactivation mode because we just want to break the cobblestone as soon as it is available, which we're going to do right here. And if I can place this correctly, I cannot. Give me 1 second. Where's my bucket? There we are. So if I get this guy, so we do that. So we place this guy up, and then we're going to do that. And so you'll notice it's going to break the cobblestone as soon as it can, and this is just going to fill up. Once this can't fill up anymore, it will stop breaking, so we don't need to worry about this overflowing and the lava going anywhere where it shouldn't. Alrighty, so the next thing we're going to do is we are actually not after the crusher. We are after something called the Basic Crushing Factory. This is out of Mekanism, and what this allows us to do is this actually, you can see I was doing, like I said, I was doing some tests in here. This, when we apply it with power, is going to crush our cobblestone down into gravel, and that's the next step. Now, when I say power, I'm not talking about redstone power. This is a little bit interesting, but a lot of the mods in this pack add something called RF, which stands for redstone flux. There's also CF, which is crystal flux. It's essentially the same thing. It just came from a different mod. But basically what this is, you can think of it as electric power, and there's a bunch of different ways of generating that power. I'm going to talk through what some of those are I might mention it in this episode, but probably in a future episode, talk through how I've got power set up for my base. But for the purposes of this episode, I'd like you to just consider the fact that we essentially have infinite power. We're not going to worry about generating that right now. You can see that little guy, this is a laser array that is actually transmitting the power to me. So that will, we're just going to assume this guy always has infinite power. So anyway, geez, I'm starting to lose my voice there. Alrighty, so what we're going to do is we're going to take some of these item ducts, and like I say, they're essentially like hoppers, so we can connect them like that. But the one thing is, it's not going to do anything on its own. So if I look at this, you'll see that the inventory is filling up and nothing's coming out of it. And that's because on its own, you need something to actually tell it to pull things out of an inventory. So I'm going to need to take one of these servos and apply it to that. And if I right click on the servo, I have these options. These three blocks here are what allow you to set a filter. So I could set it for iron block, obsidian, and water buckets. I don't know. But all we need to do here is, there's never going to be any items in here but the cobblestone, so we don't need to set a filter, but we do need to say ignore redstone. So otherwise, it's waiting for a redstone signal before it does anything. We don't want it to. So now this guy is full, so it won't do anything, but if I take out a stack, you'll see in a second here, we'll start to get some cobblestone filtering in. Yeah, there we go. So we got 8 pieces in there. I will say that you can vastly improve both the speed of the servo and of these item ducts. I haven't done that yet. It's kind of more expensive, and it's not really necessary for something like this, but it is doable. So anyway, this guy is going to be producing our gravel. Now, once we've got the gravel, what we need to do is we're going to take let's see here. So we're going to take a crusher. I'm going to put that right there. Now, the reason that I've done that is we can set this guy to eject on, and basically what that means is you see that there was gravel in there, now it's not, it's immediately gone into here. And that's nice because it saves us the trouble of having to have another item duct here, so it just saves a little bit more space. So now what this is going to do, again, once it receives power, is this is actually going to grind it down into flint, and that is where kind of the real magic begins. So once we've got the flint, we're going to turn the flint into gunpowder, the gunpowder into blaze powder, the blaze powder into a new type of block called the blaze powder block, very creative, and then that we can actually create lava out of. So real quick, I'm going to go grab my bed and sleep because I did forget to bring that up here, but as soon as we've slept through the night, we will get back into things, provided I don't get stuck under my own door. Alrighty, so moving on, and yes, for those of you that are aware, my base is in complete disarray. We're working on that. We're working on that. That's a future project. Right now, we're just focused on getting some things up and running. So we'll get the bed. I don't know. Sure, right there. So yeah, you can see where I kind of have some leftover items from doing some testing. We've got our flint right there. We've got our gunpowder. We've got our blaze powder and all that. But we don't need any of that right now. What we do need is we need something called our combustion. So there's a process called combustion in these mods. It comes from Sky Resources too. For those of you that haven't, and just I should add a disclaimer, I'm going to kind of assume that none of you have seen any of these mods before, kind of explain how certain things work. So you can always skip ahead by 15-30 seconds of them going through the explanation. Essentially, the way that the combustion works is you have a casing and then you have a heater. You're actually going to right click the casing with the heater, and that's going to create this combustion sort of block. Now, you'll see this big red X that says multi-block not formed. What that means is that this requires a specific structure kind of surrounding it in order to work properly. But essentially what this does is you're going to provide it with fuel, then you're going to throw an item on top of that, so something like that, and then when you activate this with redstone, provided it has enough heat and the correct item is thrown on here, it will combust into something else. It's really not that bad once you've gotten the hang of it, and I've kind of dug out a little bit of a framework for me, or for myself here. Now, one thing we're going to do is we're actually going to get we're going to build just a tiny little observer clock here, because that's going to make it quite a bit easier for us to get down here. So this is just providing constant power. It's just constantly pulsing this thing, and so now we're going to build that on top of there. Now what we need is we actually need iron blocks. I've done, from my testing, it looks like you do need iron blocks or sort of some higher tier blocks. Not 100% sure on why that is, but that's sort of what the game requires. So we'll just do a temporary block right there. We need a block there. We need a block there. Excuse me, and actually we're going to remove this block. That was a mistake on my part, because there is this super fancy thing, because one of the weird things about a combustion engine is when it combusts, the item that it combusted into will still be sitting there, and so it can be kind of a pain to collect. So fortunately they have given us this fancy item called a combustion collector. It doesn't disrupt the multi-block, so it does contribute to the structure here, but it will collect anything that has been combusted, so that's very useful. Then we're going to place that there. So now what we're going to do is we need a dropper to put things in here, and there is a item called a quick dropper, which is really helpful because it always faces down. It can only accept one thing, but it can drop up to a stack at a time. It does it instantly without the need for redstone, and again, it doesn't detract from the multi-block. So with that, we're now going to take some item ducts and pipe it in here. You will notice this doesn't have an option to auto eject, so this is one of those situations where we're going to need to use a servo here. So that's going to take the crushed gravel that has now become flint. It's going to dump it in here. This down below is pulsing that with a redstone signal, so provided this has enough fuel, which we'll get into in a second, you can see that this now says multi-block. That will combust that into gunpowder. So now we're going to build another one of those exact same systems right next to the original. Go down a little bit here, pillar back up, and we're going to do the exact same thing. So we've got our casing, we've got our combustion heater. This block is actually kind of doubling for us, so we don't have to get a second block there, which is nice. That's kind of why I built this like I have. Excuse me, get my temporary block back. Do that and that. Do that there. And then we need our, should have left that there. We need our quick dropper. Okay, cool. So what we need to do is we need to take, let me get a couple more item ducts. There we are. We need to take the output of this combustion setup and drive it into the input for this guy. So I'm going to put that there, put that there, put that there. Now one thing you'll notice is this is kind of attaching to things we don't really want it to, because otherwise it'll try and dump these items into that, and then it'll go up here and do it again. That's not really what we want. So we're going to use this item called the configurator, and this is something that isn't durability, that's actually charge. So that allows you to consume the charge to perform a bunch of different operations. If you shift click and scroll, you'll kind of rotate through all the different options. But the one we need here is called the wrench. And if you right click on one of these little nodes where it's trying to attach to something, it will detach it. So that lets you get things in like a 1x1 area without having it attached to things you don't want. And again, same deal, we need a servo here with the redstone set. You could do it to low, but I'm just going to do ignored because I don't want to accidentally power this thing or depower it. So that's going to take the, you know what, in fact, let me just show you guys rather than playing around. So these energy laser relays are super useful. They let you do wireless energy, which for the purposes of what we're doing here is quite useful. So you just put it on the side of a block, then you need this laser wrench. You right click that, you right click another one, that's going to link them. So you can now hear that starting to go. You'll see that's getting crushed down into gravel. And we should have 3 gravel here. Yep, and then that's getting sucked into there. We need to give that power. It is a little frustrating. These things don't share power, so we quite literally need one right next to one another. But now that's starting to grind up. That's going to do that. Perfect. And you will notice if we were to, like, if I go over here, I'll pick up that flint, but I don't actually have anything in here. And that's because this doesn't have any fuel. Now, generally speaking, these combustion heaters can accept any sort of flammable fuel, so that's your sticks, your saplings, wood planks, etc. What this particular type does, this manolin, yeah, the manolin combustion heater, what that does is that actually can accept lava. So you might be able to see where this is going. We're going to create the lava, then filter some of that back in to power this system, and take the rest over to our furnace array here. So, in order to make that happen, I'm not really going to show this right now. We're just gonna kind of assume that this is happening. So, this is making our gunpowder, this is making our blaze powder. Then we also have the ability with a mod pack called EnderIO to assemble things into blocks. So what I can do is I can put this guy, let me get another temporary block. So I can do that. This allows you to define any crafting recipe, and is provided that it is powered, it will actually craft that once it receives the necessary ingredients. So as soon as this guy gets the blaze powder, which what we're going to do is we're going to plop that right there, because remember, this collector is going to pick up all of our blaze powder. This guy will be creating non-stop blaze powder blocks. So then what we do is we're going to feed that into, and actually I realize I've misplaced this. My apologies there, guys. So I actually want this. Let's do it. You know what? Let's do it right there. That makes a little more sense. So, and you'll see why in just a second here. So we do that. We're going to reattach that with a laser wrench. There we go. Alrighty. So now what we need to do is we need an item called the Crucible. That is also from Sky Resources. And this thing has a variety of uses, but what we're going to be using it for is actually condensing things down into lava. So what we need to do is we need to place that down. It needs a heat source beneath it. Now, it does appear that I have either misplaced or perhaps it's despawned, but you need any sort of heat source beneath it. My favorite is actually netherrack, because netherrack will burn forever, and a burning block is actually enough to power this stuff. So we're going to go into my incredibly outdated storage system there. We're going to grab ourselves some netherrack. And you know, it's just now occurred to me, I don't have a flint and steel. Fortunately, I have iron, and heaven knows we have flint. We're quite literally making a flint factory. So let's go right here. So we're going to take the quick dropper and, or I'm sorry, been a long day at work. I'm losing my train of thought. Alrighty, so flint and steel, boom. Got our netherrack. That's going to go directly underneath. We should be able to sneak it in there. Oh, I shouldn't say directly underneath because you need one block for the fire. So that's going to be heating that guy permanently. Get rid of that so it doesn't burn. And then all we need is we need a quick dropper. And again, this guy actually has the ability to eject things. So when you click this is really fancy. You get this little 3D visualization, and then if you right click on one of the sides, you can define what it does. So we're going to say push out of this side. So push anything that's in here directly into this block. So that's going to take any blaze powder blocks that it's created, push that in here. Those will drop directly into the here, and that will create lava. Now you can see I've got all these fluid tanks, and what's really cool about this, guys, is every single one of these can hold 1,400 millibuckets. That's literally holding 14 buckets of lava. So I've kind of created a massive buffer here. This is 100% not necessary, but that's something that I sort of wanted to do. So we're also going to need these guys, these mechanical pipes, and you'll see that in a second here. So that goes there. Alrighty, so the mechanical pipe, it just allows you to route fluids different places. So we're going to put that there. You can see that that's kind of connecting up. Then we're going to do that. We're going to do that. We're going to do that. We're literally just making a buffer here. There's nothing fancy going on. This is just something that I kind of wanted to do. And you know, now that I think about it, I'm going to kind of jog over here, actually, just so we have a little more room to kind of flesh this out. And then we're going to get rid of these guys and replace them. Do that, and then that, and that. Perfect. So we've got a nice big buffer, and let me sleep before it gets too dark. Excellent. All right, so kind of the last step here, because really we're almost done. Because there's this fancy item called a fluid tank, and you can see it's already configured. And what that does, if I just plop it right here, is that is going to, well, provided I do it correctly, heavens. You know, now that I'm thinking about this, there's a smarter way that I can hook this up. Sorry guys, give me 1 second here. Alright, so we're going to do that. And I'm just going to break absolutely everything I've done. Everything I've done is wrong. That is okay. You've got plenty of time to fix this up. Fortunately, we're not in a huge hurry to get this up and running. Right now, I've just been rocking the 1 or 2 furnaces, and that's been more than enough for me. But it will very soon become not enough, so we're getting ourselves ready. Alright, so do that, then we go boom, and then we do that, and that, and you guys know the drill by now. I don't know why I keep trying to place my axe. That is very much not going to help me here. Do one more. There we go. Alrighty. So now what we can do is, you can actually see where I had this. So you're going to plop that down, and what this does is it's going to accept empty buckets and fill those buckets with whatever fluid is in here. We can just direct the lava directly into it. So that will allow us to fill up the buckets, and then the best thing is, over here, you can see all these servos, which as you guys know, pull things out, and you can see I have this filtered, and right now it's set to blacklist, which means this is going to not pull a lava bucket. So this will only pull the item, or the empty lava bucket once it's done. Then that's getting routed up through here, up to there, and we can dump the empty bucket, excuse me, directly back into here, so it just constantly gets recycled. So you really, in fact, you don't even need one bucket per furnace, because as soon as the lava gets consumed, it's going to turn the furnace on. I like to have one bucket of lava per, just because it makes me feel a little better, and there's also less ramp up time, but we don't really need to get into all of that. So anyway, kind of the last step that we need to do, this isn't 100% necessary, but there's this concept of pressure when it comes to all these, so this needs to be at a higher pressure of lava than this in order to transmit through. What you can do is with this configurator, if you shift scroll, you can configure it to fluids, and then if you right click, or excuse me, you shift right click, right now it's push, right now it's pull, this will start to fill up, then I push, then I pull. So you can see how that now fills up. That's because it doesn't need that pressure anymore. And so this just makes sure that if we're running low on lava, this thing is always going to have all the lava that we are capable of producing or we are capable of generating at the current time. Like I say, not necessary, just makes me feel a little more comfortable. Plus I kind of like how the pipes look. Alrighty, so really the last step here is we're just going to tap off of this guy, because the other thing is this does kind of do a priority thing. So we're going to tap off of this, and when I say priority, I mean it's going to flow the shortest path that it can first. So we're going to run that in, and you'll notice that is actually attaching to those, and not every single type of combustion heater can have that work, but the Manolin one can. So now all we have to do is see if we can sneak in here and change that to pull. And again, not 100% necessary, but we're changing that to push. So now what we do, I've kind of messed myself up here. If I actually change this to push, pull, shoot, I've got to replace this guy. So if I do that, and then I change you to push and you to pull, so we just briefly reverse the flow, you'll see that's now filling up with heat. And you can see those little explosion particles. Yep, it's all kicking into action. Look at that gunpowder. We already have 5 stacks of gunpowder. That's going to filter into here. That will end up being in here. Oh, and you know what? I did just notice we made a mistake. That's not supposed to attach. So what do? We go to the wrench, right click. Good. So that's going into there. Make sure none of that got in there. That's good. That's good. So this, as soon as that's done, this guy should be receiving. Oh, right. So I need to configure the IO. That's my bad. Because that guy was set to push, so that was at the wrong thing. So now we set him to pull. He should start getting blaze powder. We'll see these blaze powder blocks briefly. There we go. Blaze powder block instantly goes in there. And now we will see this guy is going to start filling up. Yep, look at that. And that's it. So this is an entirely self-sufficient system. Because what's going to happen... Oh my goodness. Yeah, if you shift right click with the wrench, it's going to pop the thing off, which is nice because it saves you the mining time, but it is frustrating if you forget that it's there. So we're going to set that back. So this is completely self-sustaining because obviously we get infinite cobblestone. That's never going to stop working. This is, look, that's already full. Again, we're assuming we have infinite power. It is possible to get infinite power, and I will show you guys how. But don't worry about that for now. Let's just assume that we do. That's getting combusted down into gunpowder, which is getting combusted down into blaze powder. Both of those combustions run off the lava that we're generating at it's a very fair ratio, so we don't need nearly as much lava as we're producing. And then we produce the lava, we go here. So the last thing really to do is just set up. We really just need, we don't even need a chest, but I'll throw a chest down with a little hopper just to make myself feel better. And so we have a little bit of a buffer for the empty buckets. Again, 100% not necessary. but you can do it. So this is just going to bring the empty buckets in here. Now the one thing that is important, and I actually learned this the hard way, is this filter kind of works the same way as the servo, and it's going to attach to one of these guys, but it goes on basically the receiving end. Oops, did not mean to pick those up. Kind of goes on the receiving end. So everything is starting from here, it's ending up there, and what we want to do is we want to make sure that this is filtering only for empty buckets. Otherwise, those guys will pull out just anything that the furnace has produced. And where can I put this? Where can I put this? Sure, right there. There we go. It will pull out anything that the furnaces have produced, which we obviously don't want to do because then this will fill up and it will actually break your system. So all we want to do is we want to pop a bucket in there, change this to whitelist so that will only take buckets. And that's it. That will be your complete system. So now let's actually do a quick test. So we do that, just put that back. Let's see, you know what, actually let's grab all of our cobblestone because that is the thing, you generate way more cobblestone than you need, so that can kind of act as a sort of jank cobblestone generator. So we go down here to where I've set up the input. We're going to put all of our cobblestone in there. And then, oh yeah, and here all this is just a storage crate, which is basically just a giant chest, and we're pulling items out of it. The one thing that's important here, not necessary, but it does make your system more efficient, is this is a signalum servo. It's kind of the next grade up. It's a little bit faster. You want to configure this to round robin. That's going to make sure that every single one of these gets an equal amount and they kind of take turns. Otherwise, you're going to have this one filling up first, then this one filling up, then this one, and so on and so forth. But you can see these guys are still waiting on their buckets, so that's why they're not smelting. But you can see these guys are all evenly splitting out, and then those are all being pulled down into here. Again, things are kind of slow, like I say, because because of this kind of not being the highest grade, but that's okay. So in a second here, we'll start to see, and you can see all of the glass that I was able to smelt with this thing. So this thing is quite efficient, and the best thing is it, this is, it's infinitely expandable, because if you eventually do run out of lava, you can just build another one of these things, and they're, relatively speaking, pretty cheap. But I think really what's going to limit you is if you would need to have it take, I believe 1 bucket of lava lasts for 1,000 seconds. So it would need to take 1,000 seconds for that thing to receive 2 lava buckets. And that would be an insane number of furnaces. I think it'd be something around like 1,000 furnaces, somewhere in that neighborhood. It'd be a lot. The point is, you're going to be good for any practically sized super smelter. Boom, and there's all of our stone flowing in. So yeah, that is kind of what we were talking about today. So this is our infinite lava generation along with our super smelter, and I appreciate you guys for watching.